This short story is written when it has been set up. The chapter has been set up in the Franco Prussian War. That is, Franco means France और प्रूशिया. प्रूशिया आपका जो ओल्ड जर्मनी है उस चीज के लिए भी आ जाता. So this had the chapter has been written at that period when France was actually defeated, and this was Prussia then consisted of what are now Germany. तो ये बताया है कि ये जो दो एरियाज हैं जिसमें हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं, अल्सेज एंड लोरेन, दे वर एक्चुअली द फ्रेंच कॉलोनीज विच लेटर ऑन वेंट टू द प्रूशियंस. एंड ड्यूरिंग दैट पीरियड what was the attitude of the people, and this is when the last day when French had been defeated. तो उस वक्त एक तरफ the war was going, the defeat was declared. On the other hand, the students, the children who were sitting in the class, what was their feeling? As that day I told you about the theme and sub theme. इस chapter में अगर हम देखते हैं तो you have both theme and sub theme, and the theme says the pain, that is, ये आपका पेपर में जो है, this will be a question and you may be asked to explain it. The pain is inflicted on the people of a territory by its conquerors by taking away the right to study or speak. यानी कि ये उस पेन को बता रहा है जब लोगों से छीन लिया जाता है their own identity. So what they feel. And the second one I had already told, the role of a teacher. I started for school very late that morning. आपसे मैंने कहा था कि इसमें तरह तरह के questions आते हैं. Why was Franz late for the school? Or why was he afraid to go to the school? What was he asked to learn? Was in great dread of a scolding, especially because M. Himmel had said that he would question us on participle, and I did not know the first word about them. So the question, when the question comes ki why he was afraid to go to the school, so the reason was that he had not learned the lesson that his teacher had given him. For a moment, I thought of running and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. Matlab, he liked to look at the birds. He liked to watch the Prussian soldiers marching. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles, and I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. लेकिन उसको जाना पड़ा. When I passed the town hall, मैंने आपको उस दिन बताया था, the question comes कि what was the order या why there was a crowd on the bulletin, near the bulletin board. In front of the bulletin board, for the last 2 years, all are bad news. Means the battle lost, the draft, the orders of commanding officer. फिर उसने कहा what can be the matter now? मतलब he did not pay much attention. He did not heed to the crowd. उसने जो है उसकी परवाह नहीं की, क्योंकि उसको लगा कि पिछले 2 साल से all the bad news have been, so there might be some other news only. ये आपको मैंने उस दिन बताया था. This came in the paper as an RTC. Then as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith washer who was there with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me, "Don't go so fast, Buck. You will get to your school in plenty of time." This was a sarcastic comment. This was a sarcastic comment. उसने जो है उसको sarcastically व्यंग्य उसने कसा कि क्या जल्दी है, बड़ा टाइम रहेगा, आराम से जाना स्कूल. he was actually telling him that now there will be no school. So he was passing this comment as a sarcasm. I thought he was making fun of me and reached M. Hemel's little garden out of breath. Usually, when the school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard in the street. School में शोर मचता था. The opening and closing of tests, the lessons repeated in unison. Unison मतलब एक ही सुर में. When we speak up after our teachers, very loud, with our hands over our ear to understand better. इतना होता था कि हम ऐसे करते थे. And the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. टीचर हमेशा अपना जो रूलर होता था उसको मारता था. But now it was so still. यहाँ पर washer who was there, it is alliteration. And again, so still is alliteration. इतना खामोश. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. मतलब वो बहुत धीरे धीरे चलकर इतनी खामोशी थी that he walked on his toes to reach without being noticed. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Why? Because that was the last day of their class. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places. M. Hemel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. Matlab, you can also understand if you are late and the entire class is sitting in the class. तो एक तो बड़ी शर्म आती है क्योंकि हमें देखकर लोग हंसना शुरू कर देते हैं. दूसरा टीचर जो है एकदम से गुस्सा करता है. So he was having that emotion. But nothing happened. मतलब उसे लगा कि सब लोग उसका मजाक उड़ाएंगे. The teacher would be scolding him. But ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ. M. Hemel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright. मतलब वो इतना डरा हुआ था कि तब तक तो उसको समझ नहीं आ रहा था what to do. But then he noticed, मतलब when he came to his senses, जब उसने देखा टीचर ने उसको डांटा नहीं, फिर जब वो बैठ गया तो he saw, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt and the little black silk cap. See, if you are able to learn this entire, that would be well and good. लेकिन अगर आप नहीं याद कर पाते हो कि भाई उसने कौन से कलर का पहना था, तो एटलीस्ट राइट दैट ही वोर अ स्पेशल ड्रेस. That was an embroidery and he was also wearing his black silk cap. That he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. सब कुछ, the entire solemn मतलब खामोश. It was looking very weird, very strange क्योंकि कोई आवाज नहीं थी, सब चुप थे. The teacher was wearing something very unusual. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Like ourselves यहाँ पर जो है, it is for the students, for the young people. As I said that this is an informal school. उस दिन आपको मैंने बताया था कि ये एक informal school है जहाँ पर the people come to learn their language. So the children, students, elder, old, everyone was there. तो यहाँ like ourselves का मतलब है like the young students, even the elders were also sitting. Those who used to come there. Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the postmaster, several other besides. Everyone looked sad and Hauser had brought an old primer. Primer मतलब आपका जो 0 level की जो book होती है ना उसको बोलते. Thumbed at edges, जिसमें thumbing line. And he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the page. उसे खोलकर वो बैठा हुआ था. While I was wondering about it all, मतलब why there was a crowd, why the people are sitting, he wasn't able to understand. M. Hemal mounted his chair, वो chair पर चढ़े, and in the same grave means very serious and gentle tone which he had used to me, he said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you." A repeated question, why the people were sitting in the classroom, what was the order, या फिर what a thunder clap these words to me. ये तीनों questions आते हैं और सबका आंसर यही है कि the order had come from Berlin, that from the next day, as the territories Alsace and Lorraine had been overpowered by Germany, so only German would be taught. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. What a thunderclap these words were to me. मतलब उसको तो ऐसा लगा जैसे बिजली गिर गई. And if this question comes, the answer is, what was a thunderclap? That was the last day, and from the next day they were supposed to learn some other language. This has come as, what was the order that came from Berlin, या फिर why the people were sitting, या फिर what a thunderclap these words. The answer to all of them is that their areas had been overpowered and that was the last day of their class. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up at the town hall. यहाँ पर ये question भी आया था last year. Oh, the wretches. अच्छा, तो ये वो बुरी news है. This is the bad news. This is what they had put on that town hall. अच्छा, यही था वो notice board में. This news. मतलब यहाँ पर what is the wretches referred to? My last French lesson. Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was not for learning my lessons, for seeking bird's egg or going sliding on the sand. Well, he was feeling extremely bad. Regret tha usko. He was regretting that he had always evaded the studies. My books, that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give. ये मतलब कि ये क्या हुआ? मैं तो अभी तक इन बुक्स को मैं एक बर्डन समझता था. And now the burden is gone forever. They have now become junk. The idea that he was going away for his teacher and I should never see him made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. मतलब वो तो अपने टीचर को एक strict disciplinarian, a figure who was very cranky, थोड़ा सट मतलब कि सनकी सा आदमी. He used to think in that way. But suddenly he realized that from tomorrow that person would not be there. होता क्या बेटा, हम किसी के साथ रहते रहते हमें उसकी आदत हो जाती है. Poor man. Here it is referred for the teacher. It was his it was in honor of this last lesson that he has put on his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there at the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that for they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our masters for his 40 years of faithful service and for showing the respect for the country that was theirs no more. अब उसको समझ आया that all the people were sitting over there. There was a strange silence that was only because everyone wanted to give their gratitude, their thanks to M. Hemal as well as to their lesson. एक वो country जिसके लिए we always feel proud but we never care about it. Take the example of India also. We would be, we all do it. We would be having, hundreds of things. हमारी कंट्री में ऐसा नहीं है, we don't have this. But if there is only India and Pakistan match, तो हमें समझ आता कि हम Indians हैं. We must always respect our soil. While, क्योंकि there is one word, what we say, absence is the reminder or best reminder for any presence. मतलब जब कोई चीज नहीं होती ना, when it is snatched, then only we realize its importance. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through? Very loud and clear and without any one mistake. मतलब वो अपने आप से क्वेश्चन कर रहा था. He was rhetoric. He was rhetoric. Rhetoric मतलब खुद से आवाज दे, मतलब कि खुद से क्वेश्चन करना. That is called as rhetoric. His tone was rhetoric. क्या होगा अगर मैं बिना गलती किए इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर दूं? But I got mixed up with the first words and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. Because he was in the fear of getting scolded or beaten by the teacher. तो उसके हाथ जो है वो कांप रहे थे. But instead of scolding, the teacher was very polite. ये आपका जो है, this again has come in the paper. And it is also how he blamed the people. What was the reason he had given for the students not taking any interest? He said, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I'll learn it tomorrow. And now you see where you have come. हम क्या करते हैं? We always evade the work for tomorrow. हम उसको जो है टालते रहते हैं, पोस्टपोन करते हैं. आज नहीं कल कर लेंगे, आज नहीं कल कर लेंगे. वो कहता है आप देखो, that's great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. यहाँ पर ये जो she लिखा है ना, this is entirely for the people of French Alsace, and this is synecdoche. The figure of speech is synecdoche. The figure of speech is synecdoche. मतलब यहाँ पर एक single word लिख दिया है and it is for the entire Alsace. Now those fellows out there will be having right to say. Those fellows here refers to the Germans. ये जो those fellows लिखा है, this refers to the Germans. अब उनके पास है भाई हिम्मत, वो कहेंगे, how is it you pretend to be Frenchman? You can neither speak nor write your own language. खुद को फ्रेंच कहते हो, तुम्हें ना तो खुद का लैंग्वेज लिखना आता ना पढ़ना आता है. But you are not the worst, poor little Franz. we have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. This has also come in the paper. What does it mean? What is the meaning? ये आया है आपके पेपर में. What is the meaning? We all have great deal to reproach ourselves. Reproach मतलब खुद को धिक्कारना, खुद को डांटना, to blame ourselves. मतलब ये सिर्फ आपकी बात नहीं है फ्रांस. ही इज यार मतलब कि ही इज ट्राइंग टू कंसोल फ्रांस दैट ही अलोन इज नॉट द कल्प्रिट. Here the culprit is entire village, each and every person, including him. और ये वाला जो आपका नीचे दिया हुआ है, this is the explanation for this line. अगर ये पेपर में आ जाता है with this phrase, we have all a great deal to reproach, means you have to explain that what he wanted to say. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred you to put you on a farm or at the mills, so as to have a little money more. कहते हैं सबसे पहले उसने जो है ब्लेम किया पेरेंट्स को, जो अपने बच्चों को फील्ड में या फिर दे वुड बी सेंडिंग टू द मिल्स फॉर एक्स्ट्रा वर्क. एंड I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? मैं भी तो आप लोगों से काम करवाता था. Means while the teacher has to teach, if he is talking, if he is sending the children for watering, then how the children will be having the interest? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? So he is blaming both the parents as well as himself for this ignorance, for this disinterest. Then from one thing to another, मतलब उसके बाद वो धीरे धीरे जो है he started explaining. M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical. क्वेश्चन आपके आता है, हाउ डिड हेमल डिस्क्राइब फ्रेंच? मतलब वी विल बी डूइंग ऑल दीज क्वेश्चंस, बट आई एम टेलिंग यू द आंसर्स आप कहाँ से ढूंढ सकते हो. वी विल बी डूइंग, बट दीज आर द एरियाज जहाँ से आपका आंसर्स आ सकता है. He described it as most clearest, most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget, because when a people are enslaved, उस दिन मैंने ये बताया था, this comes as a long question also. When a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. Means we must guard our language. We must never forget our roots. इस वाले में मतलब ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन था, this all, as I told you that day, that this question, when we used to have 10 marker question, 8 marker question, at that time also it used to come. Means this was a value based question where we can use our own examples also. And there was a question which was correlated with Gandhiji's movement, क्योंकि अभी आप इंडिगो पढ़ोगे ना तब आपको समझ आएगा. गांधीजी's movement, he always insisted to follow our own language and culture, what he called as Swadesh. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. मतलब इतने सालों से वो, मतलब इतना 8 साल था और कितने दिनों से वो पढ़ रहा था शायद. And every time he used to feel the brunt. Every time he used to think that I am not able to learn, I am not able to understand. लेकिन आज ऐसा लग रहा था कि he was able to understand everything very easily. I think too that I had never listened so carefully, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. मीन्स ही गेव बोथ द रीजंस कि एक तो टीचर उस दिन जो है पूरे कंसंट्रेशन के साथ पढ़ा रहा था, दूसरा they were also listening very carefully, and when there is a congenial atmosphere in the class, when the students are actually hearing, not listening, they are actually hearing it properly, then things can easily be sorted. होता क्या है, हमारा जो कंसंट्रेशन लेवल होता है, हमारे दिमाग में क्या चल रहा होता है कि द थिंग्स कम फ्रॉम दिस ईयर एंड दे गो फ्रॉम दिस, वी डोंट रिटेन इट. And the reason of not retaining is not only sometimes the teacher might not be teaching in that sense, sometimes we might be looking out, sometimes our things would be oh मैंने तो next paper next वाला जो chapter next वाला उसमें तो homework ही नहीं किया है. So we are normally that much हम लोग कभी alert नहीं होते हैं. So when there is a congenial atmosphere, then things are easy. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. What is the meaning of this? वो एक ही झटके में हर चीज को हमारे सर में डाल देना चाहता था. Means it looked as if the teacher wanted to just impart the entire French into their head. That was the way he was paying his gratitude. These are the questions, and these are the questions which will they are part of your syllabus. They are part of your paper also. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Himmel had new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand, Franz Alsace, Franz Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom. ऐसा लग रहा था छोटे छोटे से वो इतने सुंदर थे कि वो दूर से ऐसे लग रहे थे as if they were the flags. Flags floating आया तो alliteration आएगा. They looked like little flags आया, then it will be simile. They can come. The devices can be there from prose as well as poetry. Hung from the rod at the top of her desk. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. Means everyone was very attentive. The entire class was very attentive. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. मतलब इतनी खामोशी थी कि जो बच्चे लिख रहे थे तो उसकी आवाज आ रही थी. What we call as pin drop silence. Once some beetles flew in, which छोटे छोटे आपके भंवरे आए, but nobody paid attention to them, not even the littlest one who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. मतलब छोटे बच्चों को नहीं पता था कि what is actually happening. They were just sketching. लेकिन ऐसा लग रहा था वो भी फ्रेंच ही पढ़ रहे हो. यहां तक कि बाहर से बीटल्स आए तो भी लोगों ने उसकी तरफ ध्यान नहीं किया. दैट वाज द कंसंट्रेशन द पीपल वर हैविंग. यू कैन से दे वर सैड फ्रॉम इनसाइड. They wanted to pay 100%. They wanted to give their 100%. This on the roof, the pigeons cooed very low. धीरे धीरे जो है चिड़िया मतलब कि बाहर जो है उसको आवाज आई. Will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? This is again a rhetoric question, and as I that day I had told you, this question is a long one. Again, it is a value based question. Means this question has something, a deep meaning. What happens is whenever people are enslaved, or whenever people are there, हम जब दूसरों को कॉन्कर करते हैं, ओवर पार करते हैं, तो व्हाट डू वी डू इज वी नॉर्मली कैन इम्पोज एवरीथिंग. हम अपना खाना, अपना पीना, लाइक इफ even we look into the history of our country, how English came into our existence. That was because for many years they ruled over us. Many of our official work started in English. And later on a period came जब हिंदी को impose किया गया था. Then also people were against because 40% of the Indian population spoke Hindi and the rest could not. तो English एक platform बन गया. So that was easy. There is one, I've seen that अगर आप फ्रांस जाते हो, मतलब हम लोगों को बड़ा अजीब लगा. There you are not supposed to speak in English, and if you speak in English normally nobody would pay any attention. They would not pay any attention to you. If you speak in French then they would, even though you are a tourist. आप टूरिस्ट हो तो आपको कहाँ से फ्रेंच आ जाएगी, लेकिन वो लोग नहीं करते. जब हम लोग यहाँ से गए थे तो 15 days prior I had learned certain sentences because my daughter knows French. तो थोड़े से मैंने sentences हम लोगों ने learn किए थे, मतलब basic like madam, सर को क्या बोलते हैं, थैंक यू कैसे बोलते हैं, प्लीज कैसे बोलते हैं, थोड़ी सी चीजें, बिकॉज इट इज वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट देयर कि दे डोंट स्पीक अप. तो देयर वाज वन इंसिडेंट. वी वर फाइंडिंग एन इंडियन होटल देयर. तो मैंने एक दुकान वाले से पूछा. ही एक्टेड एज इफ ही वाज, मतलब वो बिल्कुल डेफ है. दैट इज द पावर ऑफ लैंग्वेज आई लर्न देयर. I learned that no doubt they explain, मतलब जहाँ आपके मेन है आईफिल टावर्स अगर में, तो they explain in English and all also, but they pay more attention towards their own language. हम कितने खुश होते हैं जब अंग्रेज हमारे यहाँ आते, तो हम लोग उनसे चाहे टूटी फूटी चे, हमें खुशी होती कि हम उनकी लैंग्वेज बोल रहे हैं. There was one very famous dialogue in one of the movie English Winglish. That's of श्रीदेवी. लेकिन वो एक पर्टिकुलर, मतलब कि वो एक था जिसमें अमिताभ बच्चन जी उनके साथ में बैठते हैं. दैट वाज ही हैड अ ओनली कैमियो अपीयरेंस. उस मूवी के अंदर शी डजंट नो इंग्लिश. तो ही टेल्स कि जब ये भारत आते हैं तो वी शुड ऑल्सो टेल देम दैट आप लोग हिंदी लर्न करो, बट वी डोंट हैव दैट गट्स. But if you go to any other country, they would definitely make their language as their. तो हमें अपनी language को हमेशा बनाना चाहिए. What he wants to say is that when the people conquer other territories, they try to overpower them through their food, through their culture, through their language. लेकिन क्या this is possible on the animals, on the water? No. Brahmaputra may be Sangpo in China and Brahmaputra in India and Jamuna in Bangladesh. We have put that name, but the river water is the same. हम उसको जबरदस्ती नहीं बोल सकते हैं. You cannot ask an animal sitting on, or any bird sitting in your house. आपको जो भाषा आती होगी ना, आप उसी भाषा में उसको बोलोगी. So these emotions, jealous, avarice, then indifference, hatred, ये एक इंसान दूसरे इंसान को दिखा सकता है, not on the animals. They are untouched. There is one very famous song of मूवी रेफ्यूजी, अभिषेक बच्चन जी की पहली मूवी. जावेद अख्तर का गाना है, पंछी नदियां पवन के झोंके, कोई सरहद ना इन्हें रोके. सरहद इंसानों के लिए है, क्या पाया इंसान होके. मीन्स ये जो बाउंड्रीज हैं, दिस वी हैव क्रिएटेड. द बाउंड्रीज ऑफ countries, the boundaries of hatred, these cannot be enforced on the animals or on the nature. Nature is same everywhere. Whenever I looked up from my writing, मतलब वो सोचता है and then he starts writing. I saw M. Hemal sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing then another, as if he wanted to fix it in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. मतलब वो बेचारा जो है होपलेस एकदम, he was मतलब कि he was full of despair. He was looking here there, मतलब ऐसा लग रहा था जैसे he wanted to capture the entire site, अपने साथ ले जाना चाहता है. Fancy, यहाँ पर fancy is not a positive exclamation, it is negative exclamation. For 40 years he had been there in the same place. मतलब fancy मतलब यहाँ पर बेचारा, poor fellow, पिछले 40 साल से वो यहाँ पर था. इस स्कूल को उसने अपना घर बना लिया था. His garden outside the window and his class in front of him, just like that. Only the desk and benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller. The hop vine that he had planted twined about the windows to the roof. मतलब कोई चेंज नहीं था. चेंज हुए थे तो वो जो बेंचेस थे वो अब थोड़े पुराने हो गए थे. हैड बीन वॉर्न मतलब पुराने हो गए थे. वॉलनट ट्रीज जो अखरोट के थे वो बड़े हो गए थे. जो वाइन यार्ड उसने लगाया था वो अंदर तक विंडोज तक आने लग गए थे. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks. शायद वो लोग ट्रंक के अंदर सारा सामान रख रहे थे. आवाज आ रही थी. For they must leave the country next day. And now there was one question by a student that, ma'am, if the teacher was belonging to that place, then why he had to leave? उसे क्यों जाना था? तो the reason is he was appointed by the authorities, and they are appointed by the central authority. तो जहां उनका सेंटर होता है उन्हें वहां वापस जाना पड़ता है. But he had the courage to hear to every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history. Then the babies chanted their ba bi bi bo bo. That day I told you that this is the vowels. हम लोग A E I O U बोलते हैं. They speak it in this. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands spelled the letters with them. मतलब वो पढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहा था. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that all we wanted to laugh and cry. मतलब एक तरफ जो माहौल था that was completely emotional because he wanted to. उसको इतनी आती नहीं थी. तो जिस तरीके से वो पढ़ रहा था, जैसे वो ब्लैबर कर रहा था, तो सबको हंसी भी आ रही थी. बट nobody was able to control their cry also. How well I remember it, that last lesson. मतलब एक एक चीज उसके जो मुंह में, मतलब कि उसका जो दिल था उसके अंदर it was registered. It was registered. All at once, the church clock struck 12. Then the angelus at the same time, मतलब that's a way church का जब clock बजता है. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. Okay, that was the time when they had to take up. M. Hemal stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. This एक बार पेपर में आया था. The students were not able to do this. This is a metaphor. This line is a metaphor. I never saw him look so tall. यहाँ पर जो tall है, it is not used for his body, for his physical length. for his physical tallness. Here it has been used for his greatness. It has been used for his greatness. Means here there was a transformation of the heart of Franz, because earlier he used to think his teacher to be cranky, but now he had full of gratitude. There was a transition. My friends, said he, I, I, but something choked him. He could not go on. Means he was crying. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, means might मतलब अपना सारा courage, अपनी पूरी हिम्मत जड़ा मतलब कि लेकर, he wrote as large as he could, Vela France. Means France Zindabad. Long live France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall. He made without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. He could not speak up, but he just made this कि class पूरा हो गया, तुम जाओ. So this is what we call as long live France. This was what ये भी पेपर में आया हुआ है कि what मतलब कि what did he write and what is the meaning of that. या फिर how did M. Hemal end the class. And this has been a very famous question, in fact I can see. So this is what we call as the last lesson. See, if you look into the questions which are there in the box, we'll find out some of them. Then if you look into this one, the people in this story suddenly realize how precious their language is. What shows you this? Why does this happen? Again, these two questions you can say they are extrapolatory questions. They are the questions which may be having more than one answer. ये दिखाता है कि normally what happens, मैंने भी जो ऊपर लिखा था कि absence is the best present. Sometimes we understand the elements, we understand the significance only when the thing is snatched away. हम realize नहीं करते हैं. Whether it is our time, whether it is our language, whether it is something else. Whatever, even humans. We don't know the value of a person unless and until that person is no more. Matlab, no more means in our life. We are very casual in our approach. So yahan par in this story, the people were very casual. They used to evade, they used to put the things on tomorrow. They used to think that there is plenty of time and it is only their own language they will learn. But suddenly they got to know that from the next day, they were not even allowed to speak their own language. Their language or their own identity had been snatched. And why does this happen? As I told you, because we are very casual. We are very callous in our approach. France thinks, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeon? This I have already explained in length. This is that when the people are conquered, empowered, the emotions, our hatred, this can be enforced on the people, not on the animals, not on the birds. They are free. They have the freedom. We don't. Though we are humans, we are superior, yet we don't have our freedom. Next is when a people are enslaved. I have already told that this particular question, ये मैंने आपको बताया था. Can you think of examples where a conquered people had their language taken away from them or had a language imposed on them? I have already told you this. और इसका मतलब ये वही वाला क्वेश्चन है. इसमें they had even asked, they had even put this extra question about Gandhiji, that how he used to fight for his own language. Then here you can see one thing is here. Do you know what is linguistic chauvinism? What is linguistic chauvinism? Uh, Chauvinism होता है exploitation, harassment, you can say empowering. तो कई बार क्या होता है, the language is also forced. जैसे हम लोग मेल chauvinism बोलते हैं. They are given more importance. Same, some of the language. Then the theme I have already taken. And last but not the least, this theme you will be asked to write about the role of a good teacher or mentor in a child's life. That is student and teacher attitude to learning and teaching. It's not any teacher, you ask any person. I had you all have also, you must have read about Abdul Kalam, Dr. Abdul Kalam. When we talk about Dr. Abdul Kalam, if we read his autobiography, which is there, so he has mentioned in his autobiography that his teachers were so nice. They were the one who had मतलब कि उसके अंदर जो है, they had instilled the sense of patriotism, instilled the sense of secularism. He has हमारे 9th में है, this chapter is still there in our 9th standard, and in that he has mentioned that how his teachers used to fight, मतलब ब्राह्मण होते हुए भी they had fought for him. तो एक अच्छा टीचर जो होता है, that teacher would try to instill all the values in a child. Teaching is not like I'm teaching you English, okay. मेरा और आपका जो relation है, that's only till the English. It is teacher and student relation is always, जैसे हमारे हिंदूस में कहते हैं गुरु और शिष्य. It is the formation of a child. Mother, father, children, मतलब कि बच्चा, टीचर, they all are the one. तो अगर कोई बच्चा शेप अप होता है ना, उसके पीछे टीचर्स के बहुत हाथ होता है. There are many examples you can cite from your own lives also. You must have seen certain times the teachers discourage us in such a manner कि हम दो तरीके से हो जाते हैं. इधर हम उस पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट या उस पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज में बहुत अच्छे बन जाते हैं, या फिर हमारा इंटरेस्ट ही उससे खत्म हो जाता है. This is a very common example. I have many students who give me these examples. Ki ma'am, I had Hritika in fact with us last year. So she used to tell me कि earlier she used to have a fear of SST, but later she took social science as her subject, as a career. So this depends on a teacher how you are instilling your values. तो रोल ऑफ अ टीचर इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, और ये क्वेश्चन पेपर में भी आया हुआ है. सो टीचर इज डेफिनेटली द benchmark for a child. I can also say there are so many positive things which my teachers have given to me, and of course there are certain ugly memories also which I have learned from my teachers. I have learned from my teachers that never discriminate any child on his appearance, because I used to feel that discrimination. For a student, for a teacher, the child is only a child, a student is only a student, and then you can always encourage the child to do the best. कोई भी बच्चा आइंस्टीन बन के पैदा नहीं होता है. मेरे 12th स्टैंडर्ड में अभी मे बी सम ऑफ यू नो, देयर इज वन चाइल्ड जितिन नायर. उसका जो बड़ा ब्रदर था जितेश, ही वॉज ऑल्सो आर इंस्टीट्यूट स्टूडेंट ओनली. and he was not so good in studies. बिल्कुल मतलब पढ़ने में तो उसकी था ही नहीं. उसको तो ऐसा लगता था क्यों एग्जाम दे रहा हूँ मैं, क्यों मैं पेपर दे रहा हूँ. But definitely he had the inclination to do something in his life, and today he is I think brand manager or something in Oyo or something like that. So that day Jitin was telling, मैम विश्वास नहीं हो रहा ना, तो ऐसे नहीं, मेरे को ऐसा नहीं है. आई नो स्टूडेंट्स, those who don't excel in studies, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि they don't excel in life. So we must not be judgmental, and a teacher needs to always encourage the child in all the manner. Sometimes it may be a negative also. Encouragement का मतलब ये नहीं है मैं हमेशा बोलूं very good very good. Sometimes it is a negative also. Encouragement, criticism, or what we say motivation can be positive as well as negative. Those students who are going to study in BST, they will be studying this. Motivation is positive as well as negative. When we are giving you a punishment, the punishment, that is also a motivation, and when we are praising, that is also. So a good teacher is the one, जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे एक phrase है which I like very much, कि a good teacher is better than 1,000 priests. And a good teacher is one who doesn't teach from the book but from his heart. That is the role of a teacher. So that is the entire chapter about, that is the last lesson. The chapter has several themes, means you may be given different thematic questions based on the theme that is given in the book. But the main is respecting our language, respecting our identity. Patriotism is not holding a flag in our hand. Patriotism is when we are holding ourselves to our soil. And the second one I have already explained. Then there are questions which I have already told you while I was explaining you. So these are the questions, and there are 11 to 12 questions are there which we'll be doing in our next session.